Getting back to our origin of we the people. Tackling current issues both political and legal with common sense. As we the people, we must bring common sense back to make our lives better. Only on Now Media TV.
Welcome to another episode of We the People, where I have the privilege of interviewing experts, lawyers in their fields, and we discuss not only what is legally pertinent for you, the people, to know, but also how political issues and some of the chaos that is occurring politically, how it affects certain areas of law. I am especially honored to have as a returning guest from last week, Vasa, attorney at law, co-founder and partner of Extraordinary Immigration PLLC, located in Miami-Dade County. See, what's wonderful about is he is the embodiment, the personification of the American dream, being a young immigrant, being a young child brought over to this country and having all the advantages that we, the people, have thanks to this great country of ours. But more importantly, especially as much as we're hearing the anti-migrant or anti-illegal alien fear-mongering that is happening. And now we're seeing Florida with Governor DeSantis leading the charge of bringing local law enforcement to enforce immigration. It really benefits us, and it does benefit my clients, I know, to learn from someone such as East on what can we do to help our viewers, your audience, in preparing with this cyclone of political retribution, it seems like.
Yeah, it's certainly chaotic right now, Alina, right? I think instead of getting lost in the chaos, I think it's really important for immigrants to know their rights, right? And to kind of know where they stand, right? Regardless of, the macroeconomic climate, which certainly is not favorable, right? I mean, individuals have obligations to their families, right? And to their employers and to their communities. So I think the number one kind of proactive measure that individuals who are immigrants can take is to be completely cognizant and aware of what their status is, right? When their status lapses, and what to do to remain in compliance with that status, right? So if you're on a tourist visa, when does your tourist visa expire, right? You can't work at all because it's a tourist visa, right? So that's just one example. Each of the separate visa types have their own constraints, and staying within those constraints is essential, right? For maintaining compliance. And if you want to change your status or to adjust over to a green card, there are vehicles to do that as well, but you want to make sure you're following the law and remaining compliant with everything as you pursue those vehicles to the appropriate destinations, right? And then for companies, also, the key word here is compliance, right? You want to make sure you're I-9 compliant, and you also want to make sure that you're at least, on the record, in writing, communicating with your employees about when their statuses lapse, asking them for their extensions of status. If you're the sponsoring employer, you certainly have more obligations on your plate, right? And you should work with counsel to understand what those obligations are. But of course, communications in writing, informing that employee on whether their status has been successfully extended, or if not, what the termination date is, any grace periods that they may have for them and their families to leave the U.S. I mean, the key word here, right, especially in a draconian and punitive environment that we're currently in, is compliance, compliance, compliance.
Well, and this goes back to how important it is, let's say, for these companies, or even for business owners, whether they're small, mid, large, to have appropriate counsel by making sure you do have immigration attorneys or a law firm such as yourself to be there to assist in not only in making sure that the compliance is going according, or assisting with, say, the extension of an HB1 visa, because that's the only one I remember. And it's no fault of it's just me. But even still, I could see what a benefit that you and your firm can provide these companies, in that you can help them structure the systems to be able to make sure that they're for lack of a better description, a tickler system going, okay, we have Jane Borscht, whose visa will expire May of 2026. We're going to give her an email 6 months before, going, we need to start the application process to extend that visa, or reminders. So this is something your firm is very knowledgeable in. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, it's really important, Alina, to architect systems so that, exactly the steps to take at which juncture to ensure that your organization is fully compliant with the law. And, for individuals as well, there's certainly value in having continuing counsel, or at least an attorney you can reach out to make sure that you're on the right side of this maze that is currently immigration law.
And I bring this up because, as we were talking off camera, there's a lot. I mean, we're both in the state of Florida, but I think that the state of Florida is reflective of many states, of what's happening throughout the United States. But I was shocked to see that as of this week, Florida, with police and sheriff's departments, are working with ICE in doing massive raids along Miami-Dade County, here in Fort Myers-Lee County, where I'm presently at, and other big metropolis areas throughout Florida. How is this possible when US v. Arizona stated that enforcement of immigration rules, procedures, and laws are vested solely in the federal government? I'm at a loss.
So yeah, it's frustrating because, and we're really seeing our kind of our federal government and our federal governance systems being placed to the test here, as far as local, state, and federal government. So at the federal level, you've got Judge Kathleen Williams effectively stating that Florida law enforcement can't really be involved, right, in terms of effectuating these arrests with Immigrations and Customs Enforcement. But then, Attorney General Utmeyer in our state, in Florida, he's very invested, I guess, in kind of furthering this campaign of having state law enforcement joining ICE raids. And then he's issuing directives to state law enforcement, effectively stating that, no, you can go ahead and effectuate these arrests. And then you also then have local law enforcement sheriffs, right, across the state of Florida, for example, the sheriff of Pinellas County, who's saying, hey, listen, I'm bound by the law here. I'm going to follow the directive from the federal judge, and I'm just going to abide by that injunction. So, I mean, as being a member of the immigrant community, U.S. law is already difficult to navigate just on your own on a great day, right? In a time like this, where there's so much confusion and there's so much squabbling between different government heads, it just kind of adds to the chaos, and it could really contribute to a paralysis and a fear, right, of authorities. And that's certainly not what we want anyone in the United States to really feel. There just needs to be clarity, I think, in government in terms of how they want to move forward with all of this.
Well, you see, and this reminds me of back in 2010, 2011, around that time. And this is when the United States versus Arizona case was going through the process, going through the appellate courts to the Supreme Court, that at that time, even little towns in Central Florida were on this. We're going to create city ordinances making it illegal to so that their police force can arrest anybody who cannot prove that they are lawfully documented, and and hold them for ICE, which obviously is clearly not in the purview of any town,
right,
whatsoever. I mean, hello, city ordinances, you cannot do that. But it also questions. I mean, as much as I love Governor DeSantis and how he handled all the hurricanes, especially be glad you're on the East Coast, that we got hammered these last couple of years. This is just like, it just seems such an affront to what the separation of powers are, and also the separation of powers between federal and state.
Right.
And then it also shocks me, and we're going to get into this even after our break, that is going to be coming up.
Sure.
You know, now they're saying like, so the police are allowed to go to schools, go into the churches. And it's
Right.
like, to me, it's heart-wrenching to think that this is what we're at now, where we didn't have that before. But I can't help wonder, what does someone do? Let's just say you're a woman. I'm going to use, because use an example. One of my clients,
Please.
she is undocumented. She has been here in the United States for 30 plus years. She was brought over as a young child.
Mm-hmm.
This is her home country. And let's just say she's driving and she gets busted because she does not have a valid driver's license, because she is not able to have a license because she doesn't have proper documentation. So let's just say if that happens, that sheriff decides, oh, you're undocumented, you're going to be arrested, and we're putting an ICE hold. I mean, what does someone in that position do?
Well, there's many avenues for your client to take there, Alina, right? I mean, she's entitled to her procedural due process before, effectively just being deported out, right? So one of the avenues that comes to mind is withholding of removal, right? Which is effectively the asylum standard, but at even a higher level, right? And then there's the Convention Against Torture, or CAT, right? Where if she fears that she may face torture or physical, mental reprisal at home, that she can put that up in a motion as well. There's also a motion called 42B, where if there's health conditions that she has and she's being treated for those health conditions here, or she's taking care of family members, perhaps even her own children, right, given her length of time here, that are U.S. citizens, and if they have health issues or any concerns, there's also a motion titled 42B, right? So at that point, it's really important to call counsel and then to see what avenues you have, right? Work with an attorney who can really spot avenues of relief, right? Now, there really may potentially not be a relief, right? But there really might also be, right? So you really want the answer to that question, and you have to work with counsel to kind of reach that point. But it's certainly not a time to throw up your hands in panic. It's kind of a time to, it's obviously nerve-wracking, but just breathe deeply and then get strategic about your options.
Okay, Ish, thank you so much. We're going to cut for a quick commercial break, and then we're going to come back and we're going to discuss more of the immigration aspects, and also how now Donald Trump is wanting to waive or have due process not be a part of the immigration process, which is in your forte as well. So tune right back in after this break.